The meeting will please come to order. Will the clerk please read the call of the meeting and return of service?
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Duxbury, Special Town Meeting Warrant, Monday, November 18, 2024, at 7 p.m. Duxbury Schools Performing Arts Center, 73 Alden Street, Duxbury, Mass. 02332. Plymouth SS, greetings. To the Constable or the Town Clerk of the Town of Duxbury in said county, in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the Town of Duxbury qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs to meet in the Duxbury Schools Performing Arts Center, 73 Alden Street, in said Duxbury, on Monday, the 18th day of November, 2024, next, at 7:00 p.m. for a special town meeting for the transaction of any business that may legally come before said meeting. And you are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof as prescribed by Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 10, and by Chapter 2, Section 2.3.1 of the Town of Duxbury General Bylaws at least 14 days before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make the due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of this meeting. Given under our hands this 28th day of October, 2024, Michael McGee, Chair, Amy M. McNabb, Vice Chair, Brian E. Glennon, II, Clerk, Fernando Guittart, Cynthia Ladd Fiorini. Plymouth SS, October 29, 2024. Pursuant to the warrant, I have this day notified and warned the inhabitants of the Town of Duxbury, herein described, by posting the warrant in precincts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, to meet at the time and place and for the purposes as described by the bylaws of the town. A true copy attested, Susan C. Kelly, Town Clerk of Duxbury.
Unless there's some objection, we'll dispense with the reading of the warrant. As is tradition, I ask you to join with me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to start this meeting by thanking all of you for coming out so that we can conduct the important business of the town. Some quick introductions. On my left, your right, there is the Board of Selectmen. Mike McGee is the chair. Seated with them is Town Manager Rainey Reed and Director of Finance Mary McKinnon. Up here on the platform with me, immediately on my left, is Town Clerk Susan Kelly and Assistant Town Clerk Tara Wakefield. And almost looking like a penalty box is our Town Council, Amy Kurzweil. On my right is the Finance Committee chaired by Betsy Sullivan. My name is John Tuffy and I'm the moderator. I'd like to review with you some town meeting procedures. Upon checking in, registered voters were issued a handheld voting device. The voting device entitles you to be seated in a voting section. The voting devices are color-coded and will work only in the voting section that is the same color. If you have an issue with your voting device, please go to the teller's desk, which is in the hallway immediately outside the main entrance to this room, and they will issue a new one. The voting process will be as follows. After the debate is over, the moderator will call for a vote. A light will go on. There we go. The light will go on on the stage on my left, and I will announce to please vote, and you'll see a green light. Voters will have about 20 seconds to vote. When the 20 seconds have passed, the moderator will announce that the vote is closed. to use your handheld devices, and if everybody will just pick them up, in the bottom right-hand corner is a on-off button, if you will. It's a little round circle with a line in it. Please push it to make sure yours is on. If it sits long enough, it can turn itself off. When you go to vote, if you press 1, that's yes, 2 is no. As soon as you press that button in that little gray space, you'll see received. That indicates that your vote has been sent out, and it'll show yes or no. If you change your mind, you don't have to go through any process other than just pressing the right button. If you voted yes by mistake, just press 2, and that will change your vote to a no. Yes. Microphones are located at the if you're on the ground level to your back, and if you're on the up in the balcony, you'll see them at the front of the balcony. They are on the main floor and at the floor of the balcony at the front rail on the left and right. Assisted listening devices are available at the table in the back of this room, and they're provided by the Municipal Commission on Disabilities. Fire chief has requested I point out that the fire exits in this room. There are 2 fire exits on the lower level of the auditorium, one on my immediate right and one on my immediate left. When you enter the room, there are also 2 fire exits on the upper level of the room at the rear of the hall behind the balconies. Please do not block these exits by standing or placing anything in the way. I also request that you not sit in the aisles or on the stairs between the balcony and the main floor. I request that all cell phones be turned off while the meeting is in session except for public safety officials. And for your information, this meeting is being taped. There are a couple of procedures I want to go over, and then we'll get to the meat of the meeting. At this point in time, at town meeting, we customarily vote to give permission to non-voters to speak. Non-voters who are town employees, officials, and invited guests who are not registered to voters in the town of Duxbury. Accordingly, I will entertain a motion to allow our town employees, officials, and invited guests to speak should the occasion arise.
So moved.
Second.
This motion's been moved and seconded. We can now vote with our clickers.
You're fine.
You're fine.
Green and blue are fine.
If you're in this room, you should have been issued with a device that has a little green sticker on the very top, a little dot, a blue sticker, and a light blue sticker. Those are the only colors that will work in this room. If you have a device that has a pink sticker on top or a yellow sticker on top, you can go out to the main hallway and trade it in, 1 for 1. Does that answer your question? Okay. No problem. So that having been said, the green light is on. If you're in favor of allowing town employees, officials, and other invited guests who are not registered voters, please press 1. If you're opposed, please press 2. Voting is now open. The green light's out. Voting is closed. The motion passes 410 to 276. This meeting will be covered by the statutes that are in our town bylaws and in conjunction with town meeting time. In addition, I suggest we abide by the following procedures so that we may conduct business in an orderly fashion. After I've announced that we are considering an article, the article will be moved by the Finance Committee and their recommendation will be heard. I will then give the proposer of the article an opportunity of making their opening remarks. I request that all presenters limit their remarks to a maximum of 10 minutes. Upon completion of these presentations, the matter will be open for general debate. If you wish to speak, I request you go to one of the microphones after you have been recognized by me. Would you please identify yourself by name and street address? I request that all speakers limit their remarks to a maximum of 5 minutes and ask that speakers do not attempt to be recognized for a second time on the discussion of any article until every other person who wishes to speak has had an opportunity to do so for the first time. Any lengthy or complicated motions or amendments should be submitted in writing so that we will know precisely what is being voted upon and so that we can maintain an accurate record of the proceeding. There are a couple of motions that I do want to talk about. One is something that you may hear, which is move the previous question. To move the previous question is a motion to end debate. It takes a 2/3 vote. It is a useful motion to town meetings, but there are some concerns that it may be abused or used unfairly. To that end, we will now have 2 special procedures. I will not accept a motion for the previous question from someone who has just finished speaking on an article to eliminate that person is getting in the last word, if you will. The second is I will not accept a motion to move the previous question until we have had some level of discussion on it. And the second has to do with reconsideration. In order for something to be reconsidered, the proponent of that article, of that motion, will need to provide, in the opinion of the moderator, factual information that was not available during the session when the original vote was taken. It's designed to limit reconsideration to what it was intended for and not have it turn into a parliamentary procedure. That completes the business of the special. That completes the information. I will now entertain a motion for Article 1, Mrs. Sullivan.
Article 1, I move that the town indefinitely postpone this article.
Second.
Wait.
If I could,
Listen.
this is a unique situation. The proponents of the article are the Board of Selectmen, and Mr. McGee will be speaking on their behalf.
Good evening, everyone. This past November, the Select Board voted on whether to recommend this article. We were divided. There was a 2-2 and an abstain. Many would suggest showed that we differed in opinion. What I would argue is that it reflected our careful, thoughtful, and independent deliberation on this important bylaw and the surrounding circumstances. For much of this year, the MBTA Communities Task Force, with our Select Board liaison, Brian Glennon, worked tirelessly to comply with the compliance guidelines for multifamily zoning districts, and they should be commended for their hours of work and community engagement. Thank you. In September, the Select Board, realizing the bylaw process was far from complete, unanimously voted to request a 12-month extension. Our town manager, Brian Glennon, council, and others met with the director of the Livable Communities Division. That director was aware of the town meeting date tonight. Nevertheless, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities rejected our good faith request. In its October rejection letter, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities encouraged our MBTA Communities Task Force to submit a pre-adoption application for review, which they did with our new planner. However, EOHLC said it could take 90 days, but they would do their best to provide feedback to the town prior to town meeting. Well, at 5:15 p.m. tonight, they provided that feedback. And all of you are here, leaving your families behind and putting your public service first and supporting your town. And that is most important, and I appreciate your attendance here. Unfortunately, with that letter, EOHLC identified issues that may affect the district's compliance with Section 3A. Most notably, and they provided 4 of them. Most notably, they made a comment that the GIS shapefiles provided show that a district excludes street and rail right-of-way areas, and the district acreages submitted in the compliance model indicate that the ROW was not included in the area measurements. The definition of gross density in General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 1A, requires including right-of-way areas in calculations. Therefore, these areas, specifically ROW across Avenue and Kingston Way, must be included in district shapefiles, even if local practice is not to include them in the zoning districts. Including these areas will affect the district's land area and gross density calculation. Moving on, for the foregoing reasons, EOHLC recommends that the town address the issues outlined before applying for district compliance. In other words, the bylaw that you have in your packets, the maps in particular, would not be approved as written by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. At about 6 o'clock tonight, the Select Board met and unanimously recommended indefinitely postponing this article. Thank you.
So I thank you for your patience. This is certainly a unique situation. I've never seen anything like it before. That having been said, it's now time for a vote. If you are in favor of...
There's no debate.
You,
See, they're all new, they don't know. Not an IP. No debate.
May I speak?
what is your question?
First of all, my name is Sue Schofield, 30 James Road, because I think we have to identify ourselves, correct?
You do.
Thank you. So I want a greater explanation about the IP. And second of all, how much did it cost for this special town meeting tonight? Thank you.
So Mr. McGee, do you have anything else to add to it? So the vote to indefinitely postpone says that we're leaving tonight having not voted for or against it, and it certainly will be coming back at another time once the technical issues have been resolved. But in terms of what does it cost, my guess is that our town clerk is giving that information to Mr. McGee. Is that accurate? Okay, so we also will be able to answer that question as well. Thank you.
I'll start with the monetary aspect. This town meeting costs approximately $24,000. The other question was kind of general. There were 4 reasons why Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities recommended the town address these issues before applying for district compliance. This was generally one of the reasons I recommended indefinitely postponing this from the start, is that the bylaw that's in the packets right now, because we submitted for pre-approval, so to speak, might not have been approved by town meeting, that what you have in your packets may not have been the final form, and that it wasn't ready for town meeting. So that's a general response to a general question. If you certainly have specific questions, we'll try to answer it. However, our legal counsel got this at 5:15 as well. So we haven't had a chance to sit down with Stantec, our firm, our consultant firm that worked on this, to determine, or even spoke with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to see what the changes will entail. So bear that in mind. Thank you.
Gentleman down here on the right.
Andre Martacchini, 110 Heritage Lane. Just a point of a question. The whole reason we came and did this town meeting was to meet the December 31st deadline. What happens now?
That's a good question. The compliance date is December 31st of this year. Again, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities was aware of our town meeting tonight and made these recommendations tonight. Obviously, we can't make a change to a map on the town floor. There's also some legality here that is unknown as to December 31st. It was a guideline. The town of Milton is involved in a litigation with the Attorney General. It was argued October 4th of this year, won't be decided before our compliance date. We won't know whether the guidelines were an overreach by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. We also don't know if the Attorney General will be given the enforcement power that they believe they have, that they could essentially zone for us, or that a special master could be appointed to zone it for us. We also don't know, what we do know is that under the statute, we could be, and I say that could because we just got this letter this evening, the statute as passed by the legislature included certain grants that we would be uneligible for. We don't know whether that would be expanded to some grants that the EOHLC has added to the guidelines rather than through law. We don't know whether they would withhold other grants. And then, like I said, we don't know if the AG would come in and do the zoning for us after December 31st. So, all of that.
Gentlemen,
Can I ask a question? My name is Michael, and I live on 18 Old Coach Way. Why don't we just vote to get a proxy? There shouldn't be that much of a material change. We're talking about technicalities. So let's put it to a proxy vote to get the temperature of the room instead of a procedural delay here.
that is certainly an option. So before you is a motion to indefinitely postpone. We're going to we'll deal with that first. If you want to indefinitely postpone this article, I'm going to ask you to vote yes. If you do not want to indefinitely postpone it, vote no, and then we will have the original article to deal with. I don't know how council would. If you have a question, please go to the microphone. Yes.
Hi, Colleen Breyer, Toby Garden Street. I think the intent was to find out if we want to indefinitely postpone based on the temperature of the room, or if we do indefinitely postpone it, you understand how the room feels. I don't know if that's accurate. We can't take a vote within the IP or not. You know, usually if we have a change to another vote, we can vote on that within the larger vote.
If we vote not to indefinitely postpone, if you say I don't want to indefinitely postpone it, we get back to the original article. Mm-hmm. The original article then will be up for a yes or no vote.
hold on. I'm working. There we go. Ooh, sorry. Sue Shortman, 349 Autumn Avenue. But what we're asking is can I make a motion to get a feel of the room, not indefinitely postpone or not? Can we make a motion to approve this article moving forward or no, without doing the indefinite postponement? We as a town are asking to take the vote first.
Yeah, I don't think she does. Here's the problem with that.
Hello. Yes, could I have your attention, please? We just had an opportunity to talk to town council, and she is in agreement. What we need to do is dispose of the motion that we currently have on the floor, which is indefinite postponement. My sense is that there are a number of people here who want to vote no on the original article. The only way we can do that is deal with the indefinite postponement motion. When we do that, you vote no if you want to actually vote on the article. Then the article will be on the floor, and then you can have a yes or no vote. If you vote yes, that seems problematic because we have a proposal before the state that they've told us is not acceptable. So, yes.
Is the mic on? There. Michael McGee mentioned one of the 4 reasons the state put in the letter. What are the other 3 before we vote?
Yeah. Number 2, if the MUPTOD is to be included in the application as a mandatory mixed-use district contributing to the overall unit capacity, then the following steps must be taken before at the time of applying for district compliance. Fill out a mixed-use location determination form, and then it provides a link. Unit capacity for the mixed-use district must be calculated using the mixed-use district offset compliance model available here. The compliance model for the 3A compliant district should not include the parcels that are within the mixed-use district. Please refer to Section 5C of the guidelines to ensure that the mixed-use zoning aligns with the requirements for a mandatory mixed-use district. Number 3, EOHLC cautions that the definition of family in Section 302 of the zoning bylaw could be construed as an impermissible cap on the number of occupants per dwelling unit. Section 3A does not allow zoning-based caps on unit occupancy. When applying the district, number 4, when applying for district compliance, please provide an updated zoning map that includes the 3A districts used for compliance. I'm going to read the rest of this because I think it's important. Yeah. For the foregoing reasons, EOHLC recommends that the town address the issues outlined before applying for district compliance. Please note that this pre-adoption review is limited to the specific issues identified at this stage of review and is based on materials provided by the town of Duxbury. It does not constitute a representation that resolution of the identified issues would result in a compliant zoning district. We encourage the town to review its existing zoning carefully to make sure there are no provisions that would affect the proposed overlay zoning district. And then some niceties. This letter is posted on the MBTA working group's website if you want to Google that while you're here. That's the gist of it. I will also add that a yes vote, if we were to reach this article, would not put us in compliance for that December 31st, 2024 deadline. We would be out of compliance with the bylaw that's in the materials you have and that we're asking you to vote on. Yes, good point. But it will change our zoning. It'll be on the books. I can't hear you.
You have to go?
Yeah, I go to the other room. There's an overflow crowd. Yeah.
Bruce Lanigan, Bay Ridge Lane. Since everybody's here tonight is here to vote, can we vote no matter what overlay they put on the map, that we don't want this in town at all? Can we just do that? A lot of people here don't want this project no matter what. Maura Healy and her board of bureaucrats designed this law. It's still in the Massachusetts Supreme Court, who have not decided even if it's legal. So why bring 600, 800, however many people are here back again? Why don't we just decide tonight that we do not want the project?
If that is the meeting's request, my suggestion is we take a vote on a definite postponement and vote no.
Move it, move it.
All right. Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes,
are you willing to withdraw your motion?
absolutely.
Motion's been withdrawn.
So moved. Second.
So-
Third.
Mrs. Sullivan has introduced Article Number 1, and now it's time for debate on Article Number 1. Yeah.
Say something before we begin.
No.
I can't?
We have to give you a motion so you know you're speaking to the article. So this is the motion that was originally crafted before the rug got pulled out from underneath us at 5:15. So, subject, MBTA communities. I move that the town amend the zoning map, overlay map, to add the public transit overlay districts and the mixed-use public transit overlay district as shown on the MBTA communities overlay maps, and to amend section 201 of the protective bylaw of the town of Duxbury zoning bylaw to add the public transit overlay districts and the mixed-use public transit overlay district, and to add a new section 440 entitled Public Transit Overlay District and a new section 450 entitled MBTA Communities Mixed Use Public Transit Overlay District as printed in the warrant. Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Any questions? Anybody wish to speak?
I do,
Please.
finally. Marie Keefe, 105 Elm Street. I just want to make a general comment, and I have to make this comment because I've been disturbed since I got in here. I am so upset that we were not responded to in writing until 5:15 tonight. It shows a total disrespect for this town and for the people who live here. And I think I'm returning that disrespect to the state right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Please.
Jeanette White, Reed Lane. I would just like to get confirmation where the green light had been on, that those votes have been cleared and we're starting from zero.
Done. Please.
Michelle Hatfield, Park Street. I appreciate the work that you all have been doing toward this compliance effort. Given the tone at the SJC oral arguments, it looks like Milton might be prevailing, and I know one of the big questions before the court was what penalties could be enforced against the town for non-compliance. And I know in the case of Milton, it was only, they'd only been through those specific grant programs in the statute. Maybe it was 2012 for $1 million. It wasn't something they were regularly depending on. So for Duxbury, what are the consequences? My feeling is people don't want this. But what would the consequences of noncompliance potentially be if Milton loses and the Attorney General can enforce the statute?
And Mary can chime in here as well if my specificity isn't good enough. But in the past few years, the types of grants that would have fallen under the legislatively authorized grants would have been, we went out on a grant with Marshfield, $2 million. We also, for sand, we also had a grant for a study of the area around the town launch and around the Duxbury Bay Maritime School for climate resiliency, another planning grant regarding Hall's Corner. Those are the kind of grants that would be we would be ineligible for in the future. Milton also lost their bridge and seawall grant. We currently have a grant for our seawall that we're in the midst of building right now. We don't know whether that would be impacted and how much that would be impacted. But those are the kind of grants that we know about right now. Sure.
Good evening. Based on the description that Mr. McGee was just providing for you, the town has put together a list of grants that departments are currently seeking or that we have been recently awarded but not yet received. Those total $4.13 million. The problem is that the list of grants that are listed in the legislation, the MBTA communities legislation, is somewhat cryptic. It does not actually list out the specific grant programs, and it seems that there have been arbitrary and discretionary decisions against communities with some of the grants. So based on the ones that we know, we have $4.13 million worth of either approved grants or grant applications in process.
Please. Oh. Hello. I'm afraid they can't hear you.
Got to go to a microphone.
Please come right up here. It's a long walk.
My name's Marianne Cullen. I live in Stockade Path. I'm not really concerned about the grants that much because, sorry about that. I'm not really concerned about the grants that much because as a town and as a community, we all bind together. And those grants are only per year. They're not long lasting. If we get this many families coming in on Summer Street, behind Bonji's Turkey Farm. We will deplete almost everything we have. We will not have a community because they will not give us revenue from the taxes that we pay now as individuals, that we support our town. So do you really think that the grants that we receive, and we can get grants from any place, and not only from the state, but also from the federal, the MTA that comes into the station, how many people do you really think are gonna ride the MTA with all the dissatisfactions, the slowdowns? They're making money for themselves. They haven't even organized their own commuted rails. It's proven fact that anybody that moves into Duxbury will not take the MTA. They will drive their cars, and if you know now, if you drive into Boston, which used to take an hour, now takes an hour and a half to 2 hours to get into Boston. People will drive. So the next thing the MTA will do is not really apply to it, but we're gonna increase our traffic. We're gonna do more road work than anything else. So you really think basing it on grants, which you don't know it's gonna be per year or continuous, or they're gonna raise our taxes up more for other situations because we have more families. I think as a band together and we support our community and help our community to build like a seawall or whatever, I think all of us would all pitch in. So I want to thank you very much for everybody coming and voting down the MTA. I also want to state one fact also, and it was at one of the meetings, that I was asked, what was low-income families? What is their income? Well, I hope everybody's gonna be very surprised. They're considering low-income families at $140,000 per year. Moderate. Thank you very much.
That's okay.
Thank you. I'll tell you right now, I know some of the families make less than that. They live in their houses, they can barely make it. And here we are gonna subsidize this low-income, moderate families to live in there. And they're not gonna be paying taxes into the Duxbury system. But they will use all our facilities, which includes the transfer station, the beaches, the fire department, the police department. So with all those things, what are we gonna do? We're gonna have to hire more people. So what's gonna be equal? We're never gonna make ends meet here. So please vote no for the MTA, because it's for their own satisfaction and not for the Duxbury satisfaction of living here and our beautiful community that we've developed and had a homey feeling. You're destroying a town, a family. Please vote no. And thank you very much for everybody that came.
And is there a question you have, sir?
Yes. I have a question. My name is John Higley, 45 Acorn Street. And I have a question. There's certainly a lot of emotion, a lot of questions that people have. But I have a question on procedure. Is there an advantage or disadvantage to the town and to us all here if we vote no action versus vote no in terms of if the outstanding issues with the proposal and a lot of questions that people have are addressed? If we vote no action, then how soon could this be brought back to town meeting? Versus if we vote no, how soon can it be brought back to town meeting? There may be no difference, but my question is sort of a legal one. In some cases, I think if you vote no, you have to wait a year or two before it can be brought back. I'm not sure, but that's my question. Is there a difference in terms of what happens here between voting no action versus voting no?
In terms of returning, the planning board returning with another article, it would make no difference at all. Mrs. McNeil.
Thank you,
McNabb.
Mr. Moderator. The answer to the question regarding bringing it back, the indefinite postponement versus a no vote by town meeting, if town meeting votes no on this article, it cannot be brought back for 2 years unless by the planning board. So the planning board kind of drives that bus, if you will.
Well,
Move the
I don't know if I can ask a follow-up.
Are there any other questions? I'm seeing none. Before we take a vote.
Over there, John.
Oh, I'm sorry, please.
2 questions. First, are we planning on having another town meeting before the end of the year? No? Then can I move the question, please? Making a motion to move the question?
I'm not going to accept it at this point. We have a little bit of housekeeping to do, and that is, before we vote, we'd like to hear the formal planning board report of their action. Is the clerk of the planning board here? Thank you.
Good evening. Jennifer Turcott, 20 Hillside Lane. Oh, sorry. Article 1, on October 21st, 2024, the Planning Board voted unanimously to approve the overlay areas as eligible locations, which is defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 1A, for the MBTA Communities Bylaw. At the same meeting, the board also voted unanimously, 5-0, to approve and recommend for inclusion in the warrant the MBTA Communities Bylaw with the discussed revisions to facilitate the development of multifamily housing in adjacent communities near public transportation stations. This bylaw will help meet our community's housing needs while promoting sustainable living options. Thank you.
Are we ready for a vote? Okay.
I have a question.
One more. Okay, please.
Alicia Babcock, Ocean Road South. I don't think that it's really a surprise that this was denied. I know that I was at a select board meeting almost 2 months ago and with a bag full of information, and it says very clearly in these guidelines that there is a 90-day pre-approval process, and it very clearly states that that's part of the procedure. I do not blame the working group at all for not submitting that. They were not assigned to even be a committee until May, and there was no way that they would be able to get all of this work done by the July deadline in order to have this information back in time. So I don't fault them for that at all. They've been working really, really hard. I've been to the meetings, and you know, they were doing what they were assigned to do. It's just that the timing really didn't work. That being said, some of the questions that I brought up that night at the select board meeting are coming up again tonight, and one of them is that, you know, if we did approve these bylaws or this document that would ultimately get rejected from the state, what would then happen? Would it kick it toward the Springtown meeting, and sort of like by default, would we wind up with an extension? And if so, what did that mean? And the town council had indicated that it would kind of keep us in compliance in a way and sort of give us that wiggle room for an extension. I don't know if that's actually still the case, and what I'm unclear on is, what does that commit us to? That's the piece I'm still not really understanding. How we vote tonight seems pretty important in terms of what we as a town are saying to the state, and even though we might vote no or IP it, at what point, how do we need to vote in order to not rezone this area? In other words, like the state has come back and they've rejected our plan because they came back with a list of things. But that has, I feel like now it's kind of already in motion. So I don't think anybody here wants it to even be in motion. We don't want to rezone these areas at all. So I just want to make sure that we understand what we're doing.
You have an answer, Mrs. McNabb?
I have a partial answer, Mr. Moderator. If town meeting were to vote in this article this evening, it would provide vested rights to the parcels that are rezoned. So regardless of what happens with the current litigation or in the future, these parcels would have the rights as pre-existing non-conforming. So if this were to pass, those parcels are eligible for this dense zoning. So that's, hopefully that answers some of Ms. Babcock's question.
I just want to recognize, we do have a person in the audience that's looking to speak. They can't reach a microphone. I just want to make sure that they can get it.
I'm sorry.
Or we can be really quiet.
Can't hear.
Okay, I think it's time for a vote.
Wait. I've been standing here.
All right. Please.
Judith Montney, Careswell Street. Our attention is on zoning tonight. But clearly this is also a housing issue. And I would like to know why there's only one mention, and it's in relation to the pull-off area for buses, why there's only one mention of ADA compliance. As I understand it, the way this motion was written, there is no other requirements for ADA compliance. Is that correct?
My name is Steve Gant, 265 West Street. I'm the chair of the MBTA Communities Working Group here for the town of Duxbury. The question involved mention of the Americans with Disabilities Act and mentions of said act in the bylaw. Again, this is a zoning bylaw that we're talking about. With respect to the ADA, there are other existing regulations and laws that a builder, a developer would have to comply with that are outside the scope of what's being proposed in the bylaw, either here or any future bylaw. So any ADA concerns that you would have would be addressed, again, outside the context of this bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Jim Donahue.
I'm sorry. Right after you. Motion to move the previous question.
Can I ask a question?
Excuse me for a second. right. We have a gentleman in the back who's been patiently waiting to ask a question. After your question, I've recognized the motion for the previous question, and we'll vote on that. So please, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Jim Donahue, 3 Perry Drive. So I guess I don't understand. We've got a motion before us to amend this zoning map, which seems to be a springboard from the Commonwealth's late action that we just received at 5 o'clock tonight. I don't understand why we are bending over backwards to accommodate the Commonwealth when this is an unorthodox situation where we've already been told this has cost us $25,000 for special meeting number 1. If we punt here, we're going on to special meeting number 2, another $25,000. Why can't we, and perhaps this is a question for council, why can't we have a provisional vote right now and find out whether this room, 800 people who have put their lives on hold tonight, is for or against this proposition, and we may end this charade now. I don't see why we have to marry form over substance when we've been put in this place by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
We're now going to deal with the motion to move the question. It takes a 2/3 vote. If you vote yes, we will stop debate on this article and then have a vote on that article itself. If you vote no, we will continue to debate it right now. Does that make sense? Okay? So before you is a motion to move the previous question. If you feel you've had enough debate and understand the issues, vote yes, and we will then give you a chance to vote on the article itself. If you want to continue the discussion without voting on the article, you want to say no. The green light is on. You can vote now. 1 is yes, 2 is no. One is yes, 2 is no. Thank you. The green light is off. The vote is closed. Town meeting voted 807 yes, 45 no. Now comes the vote on motion number 1. If you want to adopt that zoning article, press 1. If you're opposed to it, press 2. The green light's on. Voting is open. 1 is yes, 2 is no. Voting is closed. Article fails, 81 yes, 793 no.
Article 2. Article 2, subject, proposed acceptance of Cooper Hill Road as a town way. I move that the town accept as a public way the roadway known as Cooper Hill Road as heretofore laid out by the Select Board and known on a plan of land entitled As-Built Plan for Cooper Hill Road in Duxbury, Mass., dated December 28, 2022.
Could I ask you to just slow down for a second, Mrs.?
Sure.
For those of you who want to leave, I understand. Please be sure to drop your voting clicker out in the tubs outside. Don't go home with it just stuffed in your pocket by mistake. And in fact, we seem to have quite a number of people leaving. Perhaps I'll ask you to hold off on further reading Mrs. Sullivan for 5 minutes, and we'll give people a chance to leave.
Okay. Mr. Moderator, should I read the article from the beginning?
Mrs. Sullivan, please continue with Article number 2.
I'm going to start from the beginning because it won't make sense in the middle, if that's all right with you.
Start from the beginning.
Okay. Subject, proposed acceptance of Cooper Hill Road as a town way. I move that the town accept as a public way the roadway known as Cooper Hill Road, heretofore laid out by the Select Board and known on a plan of land entitled As-Built Plan for Cooper Hill Road in Duxbury, Mass., dated December 28, 2022, prepared by South Shore Survey Consultants, Inc., and on file with the town clerk, and to authorize the Select Board to acquire by gift, purchase, and/or eminent domain the fee to and/or easements in Cooper Hill Road for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town of Duxbury, and any drainage, access, utility, and/or other easements related thereto. Second. Select Board, Finance, and Planning all approved it unanimously.
If we could have a report from the Planning Board.
Very briefly, on October 7th, the Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval of Cooper Hill Road as a public way.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, I believe you're going to speak to this.
Good evening, everyone. There's a brief explanation provided in the warrant, which essentially tells you that this has actually come back to town meeting for a second time. You had previously approved this last year, and the reason that we're back again is there was a procedural matter that precluded us from being able to record the documents in a timely fashion, so we're asking you to again consider the approval of this article. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Seeing that there are no questions, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of this, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. The green light is on. Voting is closed. The article passes 372 to 82 with 1 abstention. Article number 3, Mrs. Sullivan.
Article 3, subject, Harbor Walk easement. I move that the town authorize the Select Board to acquire by gift and/or eminent domain an easement on a 10-foot wide plus or minus portion of the property located at 479 Washington Street and identified by the assessors as parcel 118-139-000 as approximately shown on the plan set forth as printed in the warrant for the construction and maintenance of a pedestrian access way on such terms and conditions as the Select Board deems appropriate. Select Board and Finance Committee voted unanimously to support. Second.
Mr. Corey, I believe you're going to speak on behalf of the Duxbury Rural and Historic Society And you are joined by Sabrina Kaplan.
David Corey, 32 Linden Lane. And tonight I'm representing, together with Sabrina Kaplan, the Executive Director of we're representing the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society. Very quickly, the Society is proposing to grant to the town an easement for the construction of a pedestrian walkway at no cost, and you will simply be voting on whether to accept that easement. But I think you might enjoy hearing briefly about what we have in mind for the pedestrian walkway. Okay. So the problem is that there is not good access from the waterfront to the parking and shops on Washington Street. People coming from the town pier would have to cross either on Matakisa Court or around the entrance near the fish market, and those are busy areas. Similarly, coming from the yacht club, there's not good access. Again, they'd have to go on Matakisa Court. And if someone is coming from parking on Washington Street to the harbor, there's not good access. The idea would be that Matakisa Court is really a dangerous spot with only room for a couple of cars to pass and no room for pedestrians. We suggest one possibility is to widen Matakisa Court, but that's not likely to work, and it's very difficult because there's not room to expand into the area of the Historical Society property. So what we propose is to create, right about here, a walkway that would pass down the side of the Society's property and go to the parking lot at the other end. It would then, as you can see from the map, pass from Washington Street to the parking lot. This could be a new public space in the heart of Snug Harbor. It would separate pedestrian traffic from boat and car traffic. It allows overflow parking on the town lot. And we imagine that there might be tables and chairs and plaques that indicate historical issues regarding Duxbury history. So Sabrina will talk briefly about the implementation.
Good evening, I'm Sabrina Kaplan, and I'm presenting this proposal on behalf of the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society Board of Trustees. So as David mentioned, the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society presents an easement to the town. And our hope is that the town of Duxbury will accept this. And in the future, the acceptance means that the town would assume future liability and maintenance expenses for the Harbor Walk. That they would maintain the walkway in a similar fashion or enhance it to which it was received. The Duxbury Rural and Historical Society would complete initial construction of the Harbor Walk. Ideally, it would be paved with a rope border between the walkway and the rest of our property. We, in fact, are applying for a CPC grant to help fund some of that work. As David mentioned, we see an immediate public safety problem on Matakisa Court. It's very narrow, and ideally this would provide a solution to that problem in order and grant pedestrian access, safe pedestrian passage between the harbor and Washington Street. The walkway could be enhanced over time. We have community support for this. Our neighbors, the Duxbury Yacht Club, the Duxbury Bay Maritime School, and the Duxbury Harbor Master are all in favor of us working with the town and granting the easement to the town in order to complete this project. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Deirdre Weiler, Shepherd's Crook. I have a question about the funding for the initial construction.
You said you have applied for a grant, but you haven't received it yet?
That's correct. We've applied for a CPC grant, and that will be considered at the March town meeting. Ideally, if it passes, we would be able to complete the construction pretty quickly and hopefully have a safe place for pedestrians to walk by the next summer season.
So the question sort of remains, it would be a condition on receiving that grant for you to complete the construction?
The extent to which. So that proposal was for that was for a paved walkway. If we didn't receive that funding, we likely wouldn't be able to pave it, but we might be able to do some clearing and make a more rudimentary path for the time being.
Okay, thank you. One way or another, we'll find the money for the initial construction.
Are there any other questions?
Up there, John.
Hi.
Hi.
So just to be clear, so it said it wasn't going to cost us anything. Is CPC money, does it come from our tax dollars, from like people in town? Just to be clear.
Yes, it does.
So there is a cost to the taxpayers. I'm not saying this is a bad plan. I just want transparency. That's
Well,
all.
it would come from that fund if the town approves it, yes.
And where does that fund come from?
From their taxes.
Thank you. And so the other question is, from a liability standpoint, like if we adopt this.
Can you just?
Sure.
One second. Go ahead.
This isn't a money article. This is an easement.
This isn't a money article, this is an easement.
No, I'm just trying to understand, like, what are we voting on, right? So that's the scary part. Like, if we vote on something and we physically don't understand what we're voting for, then we're idiots.
Okay, so to be clear, you're voting on the easement, whether or not the town should accept the easement.
But that's step one. It's kind of like MBTA Communities Act. We're just zoning it. We're not building it. So I'm not saying this is a bad idea. I just want people to understand this is step one, and then where does it go? And I'm sure it's lovely, and that's terrific. But the other part of my question was, if this easement goes in, and then Duxbury Rural Historical Society still owns the land, if somebody slips, falls, gets injured, where's the insurance liability? Who assumes that risk?
That was stated on the slide.
Well, I'm sorry, I missed it.
The town of Duxbury accepts future maintenance and liability for the walkway. That's clear.
Okay, that's a cost.
Can I point out that the town has liability for anyone who slips and falls on Mattakesa Court?
David just said that the town has liability for anybody who slips and falls on Mattakesa Court or is further injured by a trailer or anything else, or any other sidewalk for that matter. You're welcome. Okay.
I have a question.
Please, introduce yourself.
I'm Holly Morris. I'm the chair of the CPA committee. We are reviewing all of our proposals right now. The money for CPA comes from your taxes as well as state matching funds. Let me add also that we bring this to the voters. The voters decide how that money gets spent. It's not the CPC. And that will be at the Springtown meeting in March.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
I can.
Do we have
just
one
one
over here,
second.
one over here?
Joanne Kingsley, Lakeshore Drive in Duxbury. This is supposed to be for the town. If you live any place other than Washington Street, you're not going to be using this easement because you have no place to park. So this is kind of
Well, actually, our thought is that people are driving in from other parts of town as well as other places to park at either the shops in Snug Harbor or at the Harbor Master parking lot. And
so it's a limited amount of people using a limited area. It's not for the town. It's just for that limited area again. You can do what you want. You always do. The CPC funds will go towards it, I'm sure. They'll be voted at the Springtown meeting, and the Girl Scout house will get put in the back burner, and this will be approved. So that's how they'll end up doing it. It is a moderate thing of money, but it's also a case of that it's just for a certain area of town, and this is what happens.
I'm sorry, do you have a question? Do you have a question? Is there a question?
Yes, there was a question. Why is it only for that side of town? Yeah. Thank you.
Why what?
Why what?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear on the question. Is there another question? Okay, we're good.
I think it's time for a vote. Yes. Okay. All those in favor of approving the easement, press 1 for yes. All those opposed, press 2 for no. Voting is open. Voting is closed. The article passes 387 to 61. 387 to 61. Article number 4, Mrs. Sullivan.
Article number 4, subject, additional Department of Public Works facility bonding. 2/3 vote required. I move that the town appropriate $994,700 to pay costs for the engineering, design services, and construction of a new Department of Public Works facility to be located at 878 Tremont Street, also known as Assessor's Map Parcel number 092-500-016, and any and all incidental and related expenses which amount shall be expended in addition to the $26,400,000 previously appropriated for this project under Article 11 of the warrant at the annual town meeting held on March 12, 2022. And that to meet this appropriation, the town treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, parentheses 1, or close parentheses, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Select Board, Finance, and Fiscal all voted unanimously in favor.
Second.
And we have a second. Mr. Reed, I believe you're going to start us.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The comments that I have, I prepared a handout for you all. It's in blue. It's out by the front, in case you haven't seen it, but for the folks at home, I'm going to go through it. As noted in Article 4, in March of 2022, the voters approved an appropriation for a new DPW facility in the amount of $26,400,000. Since that time, the DPW Building Committee carefully reviewed a variety of site layouts and building configurations, and in July of this year, the project was put out to bid for a 33,700 square foot building with 3 bid alternates for a canopy overhang, an extension to the administration area, and garage areas. Unfortunately, the bid prices for that project configuration came in higher than had been anticipated, due primarily to tremendous unforeseen market dynamics that were the result of the pandemic and post-pandemic price inflation related to the array of building materials, supply chain issues, and cost inflation associated with projects of this kind. More specifically, the lowest bids received showed an actual overall project cost of $30,900,000, including an outdoor canopy bid alternate, in addition to $2.4 million for the administrative area and the storage garage bid alternates. Not having the funding for that project, those bids were rejected from June to September of this year. The building committee created a new configuration which included a cost control or value engineering plan that considered a 30,600 square foot building without any of the prior bid alternates, at least 20 cost control measures or cuts to reduce the price, and still left the project with the need for another $600,000 in further cuts to be identified later in order to bring the costs down to the original appropriation. Excuse me. During this time, the town sought bids for the seawall construction project, for which the voters had authorized a $20 million borrowing at the March 2023 annual town meeting. The bids for the seawall construction project came in $5 million lower than anticipated, with the lowest responsive bid coming in at just around $14.4 million. At the seawall bid opening, the idea was mentioned that since it seemed as though the authorized borrowing for the seawall project might be able to be reduced by $5 million, that if the town were to receive favorable bid results for the DPW project, perhaps the town could then consider increasing the authorized borrowing for the DPW project by a limited amount, thereby allowing the town to have the ability to add back in some of the items that needed to be reduced as a result of value engineering. Our seawall design engineer confirmed that based on the bids received, the total seawall project borrowing amount of $15 million would still leave an ample amount of funding for any unforeseen circumstances. After advising the Select Board of this idea in September, the DPW Building Committee worked closely with our engineers and owner's project manager to make further refinements to the DPW programming needs through value engineering, which allowed additional modifications to be made to the structure and the layout of the project aimed toward a result of significant cost savings without compromising the overall mission of the project itself. The town worked closely with Town Council, Bond Council, and the Department of Revenue's Division of Labor Local Services to carefully review the process of seeking existing authorization to have up to $5 million of additional project costs be considered part of the original debt exclusion subject to a new bond authorization. Each of those entities have endorsed the concept and guided us through the statutory process, assisted in the drafting of Articles 4 and 5 and their related motions, and provided authorization based on the application submitted, which included attestations from the Select Board Chair and Owner's Project Manager on the need for this funding. In October, we again updated the board on the DPW Building Committee's progress and explained that the design team, Owner's Project Manager, and DPW Committee had identified 18 cost control measures which would not negatively impact the building or DPW operations, and that the project had gone out to bid with responses from the general contractors due on November 13th. The cost-controlled measures ranged from a reduction in the building size by 1,100 square feet, from 33,700 to 32,600 square feet, the relocation of mechanical equipment to the roof and a reduction of the interior mezzanine by 1,200 square feet, and reduce the number of mezzanine stairs from 5 to 2, a reduction of the limits of paving, a reduction in the size of the on-site tight tank from 15,000 to 10,000 gallons, and a number of other items. Last Wednesday, November 13th, we received 3 bids for the project, with the lowest bid, including an outdoor canopy alternate, resulting in a total project cost of $26.7 million, which is well below the last bid of $30.9 million, but still above the original appropriation. As previously noted, the DOR had approved the town's request to have up to $5 million of additional project costs be considered part of the original debt exclusion, and the hope was to be able to need far less than that amount. What these favorable bid results allowed us to consider is proposed under this article the restoration of some of the items previously cut in order to meet our target amount. Specifically, restore the soft cost to allow the town to purchase new furniture instead of using used furniture, security camera purchase and installation in lieu of wiring and chase installation only. Under the prior design, only the infrastructure would have been part of this project and the cameras would not have been purchased or installed. Also, to cover the cost to the consultants for the increased value engineering redesign and bidding between September through November, which achieved a reduction in the cost of the project from $30.9 million to $26.7 million. The $75,000 amount is actually $50,000 to $60,000 lower than the actual costs incurred. And to add back into the project 5 of the 18 cost control measures previously considered, which are to, number 1, install concrete salt shed push walls in lieu of precast concrete blocks. Number 2, utilize a concrete knockdown pad in lieu of hot mix asphalt. Number 3, have the water service serving the building be installed by the general contractor instead of the DPW staff. Have the landscaping be installed by the general contractor instead of the DPW staff. And increase the size of the tight tank from 10,000 gallons to 15,000 gallons. These value engineering and cost-cutting measures that were contemplated were not merely expendable items that the DPW could live without. Some of the measures were compromises made due to inflationary pressures with the objective of identifying all possible cost savings for the project. This select but important number of recommended restorations will have a significant impact on the project, save on the annual operating costs of operations and DPW staff, reduce the need for further capital improvements in the long term, while keeping the amount to be authorized to borrow under this article to less than $1 million for a total of $994,700. Finally, I want to thank the DPW Building Committee for the tremendous work they've done in guiding the project team to help drive the price of this project down, despite significant market challenges that we have all faced. They've done terrific work, and they have my sincerest thanks. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I think we may actually have a question or two. Sir.
Yes, Robert Gammons, 88 Carr Road. I do have a question on the wording of the article. Tonight's the first time I've actually seen, if you'll lower it a little bit, this $990-something thousand. But my question is originally worded, I really felt we were giving you a blank check to spend whatever you wanted to complete this project. So is this article now restricted to the 900 and whatever the amount is? Or can you continue to spend beyond that?
To answer your question, yes, sir, it is restricted to the amount in the motion, and I would never take a blank check from you, sir, I promise.
Well, I'm just saying the original article didn't have any...
That's correct. In fact, that's very often the case. Most articles do not have a specific dollar amount in them. And that's
I'm almost said, as long as you're saying we're voting on 994,700 and that's it.
You have my word, sir.
I'm okay.
Any other questions? Then I guess it's time for a vote. All those in favor, please press 1. All those opposed, press 2. This does take a 2/3 vote. Voting is closed. And the motion passes 301 yes, 109 no.
Oh, interesting.
Article 5, Mrs. Sullivan, has become...
Article 5, the subject, amendment to the borrowing authorization for funding of engineering, design, permitting, and construction of the Duxbury Beach seawall. I move that the town amend the vote taken under Article 13 of the March 11th, 2023 annual town meeting, appropriating funds for the engineering, design, permitting, and construction of the Duxbury Beach seawall by decreasing the funding authorization from $20 million to $15 million, and thereby reducing the borrowing authorization for such appropriation from $20 million to $15 million. The Select Board, the Finance Committee, and Fiscal Advisory all voted unanimously to support. Second.
Do we have any questions? Hearing and seeing none, this is a majority vote. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2.
know. I thought we would be dead before that thing happened. I didn't think we'd ever see it. Building like fall down.
Voting is closed. Motion passes 348 to 25. Article 6, Mrs. Sullivan.
Article 6, subject, establishment of a revolving fund to be used for electric vehicle charging stations. I move Article 6 as printed in the warrant. The Select Board, Finance Committee, and Fiscal Advisory voted unanimously to recommend. Second.
Mary McKinnon, our Finance Director, will speak to the article.
Not as tall as Rainey. Good evening. The town currently owns and operates 2 electric vehicle charging stations, one located at the Percy Walker Pool and the other located behind Town Hall at Tremont Street. And the purpose of this article is to establish a revolving fund that will receive monies for use of the EV charging stations. Those monies would then be used to pay the electricity, repairs, maintenance, and other costs associated with operating these charging stations in town. A revolving fund is an accounting mechanism to match revenues to expenses. So people who use this service will pay a fee. The fees are then used to cover our costs. The fee structure is not in question here tonight, as it was already passed by the Fiscal Advisory Committee as well as the Select Board. Tonight, we are just asking to establish a revolving fund in order to deposit the monies to use to pay our bills. A yes vote on this article will have no impact on your tax bills.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2.
Gonna hang on.
I got the next 2.
Voting is closed, and the motion passes 303 to 40.
Three.
303 yes, 40 no.
All set?
Yes.
Article 7, subject, general bylaw amendment, proposed change in the expenditure limit to the Senior Center revolving fund. I move Article 7 as printed in the warrant. The Select Board, the Finance Committee, and Fiscal Advisory voted unanimously to support. Second.
Our Finance Director will speak to this as well.
Excellent. The purpose of this article is to increase the spending limit of the Senior Center revolving fund from $175,000 to $400,000 per year. This increase is needed due to the popularity and the volume of programs offered at the Senior Center. Folks who use these wonderful programs pay a fee. The fees are deposited into the revolving fund, and the revolving fund is then used to pay the instructors and costs for supplies and materials to run those programs. Due to the popularity of these programs at the Senior Center, they have exceeded the $175,000 threshold, and we are asking to increase that so that they may continue to offer those programs. A yes vote will have no impact on your tax bills.
Any questions? We have one coming down, I believe.
Yes. Hi, Colleen Breyer, Toby Garden Street. I don't remember how it all works, but is the $175,000 limit how much money can go through there, or how much they can have in the account at one time available to spend?
That's a great question. So the law is silent on the balance in a revolving fund. What you are voting is the annual expenditure limit. So as the senior center or any one of our revolving funds spends money, they are capped at that upper limit that is the spending limit for the year, not the balance in the fund.
Any other questions? So I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2.
I'm sorry.
I haven't read anything else. Do you want to?
Voting is closed, and the motion carries 301 to 14. 301 to 14. Article 8, Mrs. Sullivan.
Article 8, subject supplemental appropriations. I move that the town appropriate $960,425 to supplement appropriations previously voted under Article 5 of the annual town meeting of March 9th, 2024, for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, for line items in the budgets of various town departments as follows, and to meet said appropriation, raise and appropriate the sum of $875,138.70 and transfer the sum of $85,286.30 from fund balance reserve for bond premiums. The item 1, debt service of $549,000 for band interest exempt. Line 2, debt service of $61,425 for band interest non-exempt. Line 3, police $250,000 for wages and adjustments. Line 4, facilities $100,000 for repairs and maintenance for the total of $960,425, funded from the raise and appropriate stated before. Oh, transfer, no, that's it. Select Board and Finance Committee both voted unanimously to support.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do we have any questions?
Would you like me to explain it?
No questions? I guess we'll go for a vote. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is stopped. The motion passes 236 to 53. Article 9, Mrs. Sullivan.
Article 9, subject unpaid bills. I move that the town indefinitely postpone this article. The Select Board and the Finance Committee voted unanimously to support.
Second.
Mr. Reed or Ms. McKinnon, do we have an explanation?
Why we're not moving it?
Please.
No worries. We are not moving this article tonight because the funding source, which is free cash, has not yet been certified by the Department of Revenue. So this article will be brought forward at the Springtown meeting once we have our free cash certified.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2.
We already voted it.
Voting is closed. Motion passes 246 to 6. That 246 to 6. That completes the business of this special town meeting. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn sine die.
So moved. Second.
STM is special town meeting is adjourned. I'd like a vote. Huh?